Welcome to our deep dive. Today we're opening up some really interesting ancient texts. We're looking at a story that, might feel surprisingly relevant even now. It's about this figure, Khemaka. He's the son of a wealthy merchant living back in the time of the teacher in Jeddah Grove.
Right.
And he was known for something, let's say a specific habit, that repeatedly got him into quite a bit of trouble.
Landed him in hot water, you might say.
Exactly. So the story involves Khemaka, his very influential father, the local king, and crucially, the teacher. We're going to follow Khemaka's, his problematic journey, the teaching he eventually received, the pretty stark consequences that were laid out for him.
Yeah.
And then there's this fascinating layer we'll get into, a past life connection that seems to set the whole stage.
Absolutely. It's a great example from the sources showing that interplay between, character, actions, consequences, causality, and how this ancient wisdom can really illuminate patterns we might even recognize today. So yeah, let's explore what these texts share.
Okay, so let's start with Khemaka himself. The sources introduce him with a really striking characteristic. What was that?
Yes, he's described as being exceptionally handsome. And it wasn't just, generally good looking. The texts really emphasize the effect he had. It says most women who saw him were just overwhelmed by passion. Aragabhuta is the term used.
Wow.
They basically couldn't maintain their composure, couldn't act normally around him.
So just his presence had this intense effect, but it wasn't entirely passive on his part, was it? He wasn't just walking around being handsome.
No, not at all. This attractiveness seems linked to a specific behavior pattern. The sources clearly state he was fond of, consorting with other men's wives. Paradawa kamabirado.
Ah, okay. And that kind of behavior, especially for someone known, rarely goes unnoticed for long. What were the immediate results for him?
Right. The text says he was caught, specifically at night, by the king's own officers.
Oh, so directly involved the authorities.
Yes, and they brought him straight before the king.
That sounds serious. How did the king handle it this first time?
Well, surprisingly, perhaps, the king released him. No punishment.
Really? Why?
The source is specific. It was out of respect for Khemaka's father, the great merchant. Very influential figure.
Okay, so his connections got him out of it. Did that close call serve as any kind of, wake-up call for Khemaka?
It seems not. The sources are quite clear on this point. Neva Virame. He did not stop.
Even after being caught by the king's men and brought before the king himself?
Exactly. So inevitably it happened again, caught a second time, brought before the king again.
And the king's reaction the second time?
Same thing. Released him, again, likely due to the father's standing.
Goodness. Okay, surely not a third time.
Yes, a third time. Caught again, brought before the king again.
And let go again.
And let go again. Each time, the king releases him. You see this pattern. The behavior, getting caught, but the consequence is sort of nullified by his father's status.
That must have created a very difficult situation. Repeated offenses, repeated leniency. It feels like the father would have to intervene eventually.
He absolutely did. The great merchant hears about this recurring issue, and this time he doesn't rely on his influence with the king. He tries a different path. He takes Khemaka himself and goes directly to the teacher.
Ah, seeking a deeper kind of help when worldly solutions or maybe lack of consequences weren't working?
Precisely. He laid out the whole situation for the teacher and specifically asked him to teach Khemaka the Dhamma, the path, the spiritual teachings.
How did the teacher approach this? Did he just jump straight into the rules?
The sources say he started with what's called a savagakatha, basically a talk designed to arouse spiritual urgency.
What does that mean exactly?
It's about reflecting on things like impermanence, the potential for suffering, getting Khemaka into a receptive state of mind first, sort of preparing the ground.
Okay, makes sense. Set the stage first.
Yes. And then the teacher addressed Khemaka's specific issue head on. He recited verses Gatha that showed the dosai, the danger, the fault, the negative results of this specific behavior, consorting with other men's wives.
Okay, so now we get to the core teaching. This is where those specific consequences come in. The first verse mentions the negligent man falling into 4 states. What are these states?
Right, Katari Anani. The commentary explains these ahani aren't just states, but dukkha karanani, causes or grounds for suffering. 4 specific ways this behavior leads to suffering.
Okay, what's the first one?
First is apunyalabha, the acquisition of demerit. Basically, gaining unwholesome karma, akusalabha, you're actively creating negative causes.
Got it. Demerit. What's number 2?
Second is lanikamasaya, discomfort in sleep.
Discomfort in sleep.
Yes, and the explanation is quite vivid. It means you don't get to sleep as you wish. You only get a little sleep, maybe fitfully unwillingly. Anāthapiṇḍika kala saya lavati.
The anxiety, the fear, maybe guilt, constantly looking over your shoulder, perhaps?
Exactly. That kind of mental state makes restful sleep impossible.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the third state?
The third is ninda, reproach, or censure. Public blame, losing your reputation, becoming known for this kind of conduct. Social consequences.
Right. Shame, social standing ruined. And the fourth?
And the fourth one listed in this verse is stark. Niraya, hell. The ultimate bad destination resulting from these accumulated negative actions.
So, demerit, bad sleep, public disgrace, and a terrible future destination. That's quite a list. But the teaching didn't stop there, did it? There was a second verse.
Correct. The second verse reinforces and elaborates on these points. It repeats the idea of acquiring demerit, a punyalava, and directly links it to gati kapatika, an evil destination. And it clarifies this evil destination is indeed hell, niraya sokata. So it leaves no doubt about the connection between the action and its ultimate spiritual consequence.
It really hammers home that cause and effect. What else did the second verse add?
It also addresses the supposed reward, the pleasure involved. It says, ratikatokika. The pleasure is slight, it's little parite, and it specifies it's the pleasure of a frightened man with a frightened woman, highlighting that the fear, the secrecy, the illicit nature drastically diminishes any actual enjoyment.
So the upside is tiny, almost non-existent when you factor in the fear.
Precisely. The risk-reward calculation is terrible. And then the verse brings in the worldly consequences Khemaka had been dodging. It says, Danta garuka bateti, the king, inflicts heavy punishment.
The punishment his father's status had protected him from so far?
Yes. And the source commentary doesn't shy away from examples mentioning severe penalties like hattajadadavasena, things like cutting off hands.
Wow, cutting off hands? That really puts the king's previous leniency and the risk Khemaka was running into sharp focus.
It absolutely does. And so, the verses conclude with a very clear logical instruction. Pasma. Therefore, one should not consort with the wife of another.
Because it leads to all this.
Because it leads to demerit, disturbed mind, loss of reputation, potentially horrific worldly punishment, and ultimately, a terrible rebirth. The downsides are overwhelming.
Hearing all that laid out so clearly, so directly, especially after being caught 3 times, that must have had a powerful effect on Khemaka. What was the result of this teaching?
The impact described is immediate and, frankly, astonishing. The source says right at the end of this course, Desanavasana, Khemaka was established in Sotapattiphala.
Sotapattiphala, stream entry.
Exactly. The first stage of enlightenment, a fundamental shift in understanding, a guarantee of eventual full liberation.
That's incredible. He went from this cycle of compulsion and near misses to stream entry just from hearing this teaching.
That's what the text reports, a complete transformation. And interestingly, it also notes that after this, the Mahajano, the general public, the community, could pass their time happily. His behavior had clearly been causing wider distress.
That makes sense. His actions would have ripple effects. But this transformation is so dramatic, it really makes you wonder, why Khemaka? Why him? Why was he apparently so irresistible that women lost their composure? And why was he drawn to this specific risky behavior? Was there a deeper reason mentioned?
Yes, and this is where the story adds that really fascinating layer of depth. The texts themselves pose this question. What was the past karma that led to this specific situation?
Okay, so it digs into the backstory.
It does. It goes back to the time of a previous Buddha, Kassapa Buddha. In that life, the person who would become Khemaka was an Uddhamamalo, a supreme wrestler.
A wrestler. Okay, so someone strong, maybe admired, prominent in a physical way?
Possibly. And in that life, he performed a significant meritorious act. He placed Vivasavanapatakani, 2 gold banners on the golden stupa of the Dasabala, the Buddha.
A very respectful, generous offering. A good deed.
A very good deed. But he didn't just do the deed, he made a specific wish, a pathana, connected to it.
An intention tied to the merit. What was the wish?
It was very specific. The text records him wishing, "May all women, except those related by blood or marriage upon seeing me, become impassioned or lustful, Rajantuti."
Wow. He used the merit from decorating the stupa to wish that unrelated women would be overcome with desire for him.
Precisely. And the source explicitly draws the line. Because of that past action and that specific powerful wish, when women saw him in his present life as Khemaka, they couldn't maintain their composure, Sakavalanasa Sathidunasakisuti.
So his almost supernatural handsomeness, or at least its effect, was a direct result of a past life wish tied to a meritorious act.
That's the explanation given. The merit might have resulted in handsomeness, but the specific effect, women becoming overwhelmed, stemmed directly from the nature of his wish. So pulling it all together, Khemaka's present situation, his impact on women, maybe even his own inclination towards that behavior, wasn't just random chance. It was profoundly shaped by this past cause, this potent intention set long ago.
But, and this seems crucial, that past cause didn't seal his fate.
Not at all. And that's perhaps the most powerful part of the story. Despite this deep karmic root, the teacher's wisdom laying bare the present consequences, the suffering inherent in his current actions, gave him the insight needed to break free.
It's like the teaching eliminated the danger zone so clearly he could finally choose to step away, even from something with such deep roots.
Exactly. Seeing the dosi, the fault and danger, allowed him to detach from that powerful pull, that past life programming, if you will, and attain stream entry, a path to liberation.
This whole story of Khemaka, it's just a really rich illustration of ancient wisdom in action, isn't it?
It really is.
We see this clear line drawn from a past action and maybe even more importantly, a very specific wish, shaping his present reality, influencing how others reacted to him, perhaps even creating the conditions for his problematic habits.
The power of intention is clear.
But then we also see this incredible demonstration of the power of the Dhamma, of wisdom and clear understanding, how it can cut through even these deeply ingrained patterns. Khemaka's transformation is just stunning, achieving stream entry, basically on the spot, just by fully grasping the consequences of his actions. It's a potent message about the possibility of change.
It underscores that while past karma creates conditions and tendencies, our present understanding and choices are paramount.
Yeah. I think the key takeaway here is how our actions, and maybe just as much our strong intentions, our wishes, can really set things in motion, creating ripples that affect our lives in complex ways, sometimes lifetimes later.
True.
Yet that doesn't mean we're trapped. Gaining genuine insight into the results of our current choices, really seeing the cost of certain desires and behaviors, gives us the power to change course, to choose differently right now.
That insight is the key to freedom.
So maybe something for you, the listener, to reflect on. In what subtle ways might your own past actions or perhaps strong intentions or wishes you've held be influencing your present tendencies, your habits, maybe even how others react to you? And more importantly, what new possibilities might open up if you really honestly examine the true costs, the long-term consequences, not just the immediate payoff of your current actions and desires? Something to think about.